which is on 94.3 Radio 1, and also a fabulous podcast creator on multiple platforms. He's a multiple RAPA and Promax Award winner. He's hosted and given voice to tons of content. He's won the war of the RJs, a nationwide poll in which radio listeners voted him on top of the heap as the #1 radio presenter in India. This was back in 2016. He's continued with winning Afternoon Newsmakers Achievers Award in 2018 and the EMAX Global Award in 2019. The list goes on. The gentleman's here with us. Without further ado, Rishi K.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. There's a small appendage or a corollary to that introduction, which is I feel I'm part of the Godrej Group. Simply because the values that the Godrej Group stands for is something that I'm in perfect synergy with, so I always say I'm a phone call away. So it's just wonderful to have a room full of our friends from the media, live, face to face. Elon Musk was saying the other day, he said, the American media is a strange breed. They're so used to being on videos and video software over the last 3 years of the pandemic that you invite them to a live face-to-face event, and when the MC turns around and says, the press meet is about to begin, they open their video software. But I don't want to be judgmental, but I have to say that's the American media. It's wonderful to see all of you here today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a trying few years, we all know that. But it is our firm belief at Godrej that we're at the cusp of further growth. And when we talk of further growth, one of the propellers for further growth is the growth of credit. And when you think of the growth of credit, you start looking at the players in that particular sector. Large players, strong players, who can get a foothold in there? Only somebody who has the might of a large brand behind them. Only somebody who's able to raise debt. Only a company and a group that is able to invest considerable amounts of capital. So therein, making use of the large ecosystem at Godrej's disposal. You already know the real estate story. That's been a success. And in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, Godrej Housing Finance happened to facilitate loans. And today, it's time to raise the ambition. Now, I'm not that ambitious to raise the ambition. I'm still a man of meager means, but there are some wonderful people here who are going to help us raise the ambition. And without further ado, let me invite them on stage. Please put your hands together for Pirojsha Godrej. He's the Executive Chairman of Godrej Properties, Godrej Housing Finance, and Godrej Fund Management. Under Pirojsha's guidance, Godrej Properties for the first time became India's #1 publicly listed real estate developer by sales and has been at the forefront of the sustainable development movement. In 2016, it might interest you to know, the IGBC, the Indian Green Building Council, honored him as the IGBC Green Champion. So Pirojsha is going to be in what we like to call a fireside chat with the fire missing. Please to welcome Manish Shah. Please put your hands together. He's the Managing Director and CEO of Godrej Housing Finance. An experience of over 2 decades in retail financial services, Manish has held leadership roles in organizations from MNCs to PSUs. In his vast stint, he's been involved in setting up large distribution networks, strategic business development, institutional fundraising, building analytics and risk management frameworks, often from the ground up. Pleasure to have you join. Now, since our panel is complete, let's get down to brass tacks. Pirojsha, 125 years, what a legacy. The Godrej Group has been making India, enabling dreams of people across the world, through products, through services. But the last 2 years have been particularly challenging for people and of course for the Indian economy. How has Godrej traversed this difficult terrain? It's a good place to start.
Thanks so much, first of all, Rishi, for agreeing to host us today. Thank you all for coming. As Rishi was saying, it's wonderful after a couple of years to actually be doing this in person, so really looking forward to the discussions. I think at the group, our primary lens, Rishi, for over the past 2 years has been first, how do we do our bit to, of course, take care of our own teams, and that has been a challenging task, and I think a lot of excellent leadership and work at the ground level across our operations around the country and even globally has gone into ensuring that. We've also, of course, tried to do our part in supporting the country's response to the pandemic and have invested 100 crores and seen quite a lot of successful initiatives through that in the response, particularly on vaccines, etc. On the business side of things, we've actually been relatively fortunate as a group. None of our major businesses are the ones that have been hit hardest by the pandemic. So we don't have, for example, a hospitality business or things like that, which the pandemic really had a devastating impact on. In fact, some of our businesses have seen their industries grow quite considerably as a result of the pandemic. So for example, you mentioned Godrej Properties, which in financial year 21 for the first time became the largest developer in India. It has actually seen a sector that has recovered as a result of the pandemic, both in India and globally. Real estate has strengthened quite considerably during this period. Demand has gone up as people have sort of re-recognized the importance of ownership of homes and the importance of modern homes with amenities and things like that. We've also seen other businesses benefit. So, for example, we're in the chemical space. As a result of some of the geopolitical response to the pandemic, people have seen the importance of not having all their eggs in the China basket, and you've seen a lot of companies globally focusing away from China through this China Plus One investment strategy. We've been able to see considerable benefit from that. One of our proudest achievements actually has been Godrej Housing Finance itself, where we started this business from scratch in the middle of the pandemic. We launched the business for the first time in November of 2020, and to see that we've now got a 300 plus strong team, that we've been able to exceed all our initial plans for the business, despite the dislocation of two major pandemic waves during the first year and a half of our operations, has been very encouraging to see. So overall, I think the group has withstood the challenge well, and I'm quite proud of where we are, and I think we've actually strengthened ourselves over this couple of years.
Wonderful. Our friends from the media, you will get an opportunity to ask questions, so maybe you'd like to note them down while Pirosha and Manish are speaking, and at the end we'll roll around with questions. For all of our friends from the media who are part of this congregation, this press meet, via teleconferencing, again, you could just pop your question in the chat box of the software that you're on, and we're happy to take those questions later. Now, you did touch upon it briefly, but I want to do a deep dive into it. When you decided to get into the financial services space, what was the thinking? What was the vision?
So Rishi, I think two broad buckets, right? One is there an opportunity and a requirement? And as you touched upon in your opening remarks, I think India is still a highly underserved financial market. If you look at things like our bank to population ratio, it's one of the lowest in the world. So I think for India to be able to meet its growth aspirations over these coming years, clearly financial services is going to be a space that requires investment. And we feel well placed to be one of the significant players in that space. So I think first, are we addressing something that needs solving at a national level and where there is an opportunity? Our view is clearly the answer to that is yes. Secondly, do we at Godrej have what it takes to succeed in this sector, where there are, of course, already many very strong companies, companies with huge scale, a huge track record. And our view is that we do have what it takes, whether you look at it from the strength the brand provides us in being able to access capital at very efficient terms, the ecosystem we have through hundreds of millions of customers across the country who use one or another of our products every day, which is why, for example, we chose to start this business through launching home loans, where Godrej Properties already has a large presence and a lot of expertise. So I think that combination of saying we are trying to serve an underserved market and participate in a sector that will be absolutely critical to the country's growth. And combining that with saying we see a huge opportunity to very profitably serve that market given the strengths of the Godrej brand. I think that combination was what gave us the confidence that this is a sector that we must have a presence in.
Awesome. Now, Manish, there's no other way to put it, but your business is a pandemic baby.
Yes.
It's the business you lead, and it was indeed born in the pandemic.
It was, and it's been quite a ride. Remember, we launched in November 20, and at that point, we thought we had launched in a post-COVID world. We thought, thank God, COVID's over. Great timing, the worst of it's behind us. Only to be hit smack with wave 2 a few months down the line. So yes, it's been one hell of a ride.
Yeah, so just retrace the journey for us. If you could just look at salient features, highlights.
Okay. So Rishi, let me try and break this up into two parts. Right? The first really is the building blocks of the foundation. Where we had a set of assumptions seeing playing out. First and foremost, we were very pleasantly surprised actually, and we were a bit nervous when we were launching. We're a new player. It is an intensely competitive market. How will customers see us? We were quite surprised by the fact that customers weren't surprised and didn't really care that we were a new player in this space. From the customer's point of view, this is what the brand stands for. It's tried and tested, and we're more than happy to go with the brand. The second part of our foundation really has been laid by the kind of support we've received from the group and the mandate, which is to build this from the ground up, but always be thinking multi-decade. And the third, last but not the least, as part of this foundation is through that period when we were building, and lots of, as they say, right, some of the hardest decisions are taken in the toughest times. We were very, very fortunate to get a fantastic team. So that's the foundation of how we've pieced this together. I'm grateful for people, especially, we had interactions with some of you in November 20 when we were launching. And I just want to touch upon that, some of the highlights. At that point when we met, we had said that our first goal was to serve the first 1,000 customers and to do it really well in the first 4 months of our launch after November in that financial year. So we were out to serve 1,000 customers. We did that, 900 something customers. We said that in our first full year of business, we will put up an AUM of 1,500 crores. That's more like an 1,800 plus. And we are going to end this year with 4,500 customers. We ended last year, I beg your pardon, with 4,500 customers. But what we're proudest about is some of the customer feedback we're getting and the satisfaction scores that we get, especially in the last quarter, as we've kept putting our building blocks together. Some of these are industry leading, and what folks haven't been able to manage in the last 2 decades even.
So, many congratulations. It's what I'd call a success story. It's a logical segue, the next question, which is, and the first time I met your team, that was my instinctive first question. Is it a captive business for Godrej Properties projects?
Yeah, we get this question a lot.
Yeah.
Far from. As a startup, like any startup would do if you're new in a space, you choose where you want to get started with. And the logical business sense is to start and swim close to the shore, get better and move forward. So when we started out, going back to our goal, the first 1,000 customers that we wanted to serve, the logical starting place was the group's ecosystem within Godrej Properties customers. Serve them well. That then gives you the right to move forward. So in our first 4 months, the ratio was 100% in-house customers served. Fast forward to where we are now, or let me take it this way. After the first 6 months, we then ventured to projects funded by, projects where we funded people buying homes from other developers. We've now got to the point where we are at 50 plus relationships, 200 plus projects. 6 months back, we launched our loan against property business. And fast forwarding to March of 21, we are now at an equally proportionate one-third across these 3 businesses. And I'll talk a little bit more in the course of our conversation as we go forward, how we leverage existing ecosystems and what we expect from each.
Sure. Pirosha, how big is the space really? Do you think there's scope, place for new players?
Absolutely, Rishi. I think it's already one of the biggest spaces in the country. If you look at it, of India's 10 biggest businesses, 5 are from the financial services sector. So I think that the presence or scale of the sector is already immense. But I think what excites us about it, and the reason for our entry, is that we think that this is something that the country will need to see rapid growth in over the next multiple decades. And I think that is what we're trying to lay the foundation for. But perhaps before we get into more details on that, we can request you all to bear with us as we have our announcement, and we'd like to play an audio visual for you.
Wonderful.
At Godrej, it has always begun with envisioning a beautiful India, believing in it, and then working towards making it come true. In 1920, when we made the first vegetable oil soap, it started with envisioning India finding a humane way to meet its needs. In 1984, when we introduced mosquito-repellent mats, we were envisioning India being free from vector-borne diseases. In 1990, when we founded Godrej Properties, we were envisioning an India where every family owned that joyful little home. In 1991, when we introduced sustainable products to increase crop yields, we were envisioning India's farmers doubling their incomes. In 2016, when we set up Godrej Fund Management, our real estate private equity firm, we were envisioning global institutional capital being invested in India. When in 2020, we launched Godrej Housing Finance, we were envisioning an India where every family had access to the most customer-friendly auto loans. And now, in 2022, when we're launching Godrej Capital, we are envisioning an India where its people will never have to worry about the capital they need, whether it's to build their dream ventures or to expand their businesses, whether it's for the long haul or for the short term. Godrej Capital aspires to be the company that Indians turn to when they need funds for what is most important to them. Godrej Capital, what's important to you?
Well, gentlemen, congratulations are in order. Hearty congratulations on the foray into Godrej Capital. A big round of applause here. Now, I think this is going to be a really, really exciting space to watch. Godrej, India's largest conglomerate, after Godrej Housing Finance, what a fabulous strategic move. Pirosha, what prompted you to expand Godrej into the financial services sector?
I think, Rishi, I think the idea was, first of all, always to test the waters with Godrej Housing Finance. We've been extremely encouraged and excited by the response we've received. So I think this was, for us, the logical progression. At the group, I think, we never think of businesses as short-term ventures. Some of our businesses now are coming on, as you said, 125 years of existence. We really see financial services as an opportunity to build a very critical and large driver of the group's future over the next 50 to 100 years. And I think that's the intent behind saying that while we started with a specific part within financial services, we do have appetite for much stronger growth within this space.
Manish, you want to add to that?
No, I think there were a few things I wanted to go over, but for now, I think seeing what we have and tested the waters where we are at, whether it was our first 1,000 customers, the first 3,000 crores of bookings that we've been able to do. Not only that we've been able to compete, one of the questions we always have is, it's not like it's a brand new space, it's not like there aren't strong players present. But in how we've been able to serve, the 4,500 customers, the 3,000 odd plus crores that we've been able to book, and the book that we've built, all of this actually is a portfolio built through the pandemic. You might recall there were loan moratoriums, quite a bit of uncertainty that went through. And through all of this, we've, early days of course, but we're very pleased with the quality of the portfolio that we have and how we've served these customers. So yeah, I think it augurs quite well as we bid forward.
I used the word ambition and renewed ambition. And I'd like both of you to take that. with Godrej Capital, how does the renewed ambition look like?
So Rishi, I think there are short-term objectives that we'd like to deliver. So I think one of the first objectives we have is to get into an AUM of 30,000 crores over the next 3 or 4 years. To reach that, we think we'll require about 5,000 crore of investment into this business. By the end of this month, we'll already have invested as a group about 1,500 crore of equity. So I think in terms of near-term business objectives, that's what we're hoping to achieve. I'm happy to say that after the first year of the business, on most of the parameters that we're tracking, whether AUM or bookings, we're ahead of where we'd hope to be. So hopefully we can also deliver ahead of these targets. But I think what's exciting to us about this again is the longer term potential to create a really high quality business here, to try and innovate within financial services. We've already on the housing finance side, for example, come up with things like design your own EMI that have been new to the industry. And I think using that sort of digital first innovative thinking to really create a long-lasting and extremely strong financial services entity is the long-term ambition.
You want to take that, the renewed ambition?
Yeah, Rishi, again, having tested the waters over the last year and a half, I think our opportunity is to build a world-class retail financial services business, where there's plenty of challenges in being a late entrant. A fabulous opportunity, for the timing that we are, is the quality of the technology backbone that we've been able to build, partially because of the quality of effort we've put in, but also because what technology allows us today. So we are a born in the cloud, digital first an entity that can allow us to really build innovations at scale, but keep doing it with keeping a single customer at the center of it as you build. So this allows us, we've got this combination of legacy where you need it, whether it's what the customer thinks of the brand, but no legacy baggage from a systems perspective, and therefore you can go out there and build.
With the Godrej Group, I can say it doesn't come from a place of arrogance, it comes from a place of total humility. And when I say total humility, it is you're never late to the party. Because when you come to the party, there's a brand new party that starts all over again. And that's what this is all about. But nevertheless, we must explore that, Manish. There are plenty of well-funded players, including fintechs, who have come in with the intent of making it big. From Godrej's perspective, what does it take to succeed in this market?
So let me just zoom out a little bit, right? We've seen several cycles over the last two and a half decades. It started off with the internet boom in the 90s. We've seen 07, 08. And you've seen the post-IL&FS challenges and COVID, of course. When you put all of our experiences together, and let me just sort of zoom out and say our experiences as an industry, not just sort of what we're doing here at Godrej, is this opportunity really to combine what the traditional strengths are, which is long-term thinking prudently, especially when you're in the lending business, taking a 10-20 year view, not chasing vanity metrics, or not being large for the sake of being large. When you combine that with some of the changes that are taking place, I've always wondered why we keep having conversations and saying fintechs, will take over the world and it's one without the other. All over the world, it's a partnership. So when you work together, and that's the opportunity someone like us has. When a customer is being served at the end of the day, when you take a loan and you don't have to sign documents, or it can be done, it can be done digitally end to end. You're not really concerned whether did we do all of it, did we partner with 5 other players that made it possible, did your cloud provider make it possible, but when it all comes together, it makes sense. You just convert more people from sitting on the sidelines to going all in and saying it makes sense, works for me, process works for me, product design works for me. So I think that sort of opportunity actually exists, and that's really there are a large number of players, or the scale of technological innovation is so fast that traditional folks would be washed away. If you look at some of the best value that's been created over a period of time is people who had that in common. A strong brand, long-term commitment, and being agile on your feet and saying, I'll take that and marry that with what my customer really wants.
It's quite brilliantly put. But allow me to probe you more on this specificity of your goals. What really is the strategy?
So let's break this up into two parts, right? So first, let's look at how we approach this, and one of the questions that we started with housing, really how different is as we get Godrej Capital going. So we started where we did. We started with what you might call the prime housing business. We expanded that to loan against property. We now feel confident of the proposition. We have a nationwide tour of all of our channel partners, which, by the way, we are moving from the 200 odd partnerships we have to over 1,000. In the near term, we are looking at moving our 5-city operation to doubling it to over to 11. In the course of this year, we are very, very keen to understand and figure out how best we must participate in the affordable housing space. And as this gets put in play, we will launch our unsecured cash flow-based lending business. Again, looking at some of the rails that we've laid out, both from a distribution perspective and from a platform and technology perspective. And again, we will start off from saying, is there an opportunity to look at the group's ecosystems to get started with? We often talk about the properties ecosystem that we got started with on the housing business, but there is a large agri business, there is a huge consumer business that we have access to start funding different points there. So we have a busy next few years to say the least, but that's how we see it playing out. So when we look at it, as Pirojsha mentioned, when you look at us as a 35,000 crore balance sheet business 4 years from now, and you're looking backwards, what we'd love for you all to see is a granular retail portfolio built with risk and technology at the center of it all. Continues to be a great team that grows by 50% this year and then 50% the next. And de-risked from a product portfolio concentration perspective. So we started off with saying that, is this a captive housing finance company? Looking out, looking inside from 4 years in, you would see a healthy mix between our prime housing, affordable housing, loan against property and unsecured lending businesses, with no one pillar being more than 15 to 20%.
Over the last 125 years, I imagine the one thing that has stood the Godrej Group in great stead has been putting on a customer's hat. From a customer's point of view, what would be the USPs that you're armed with? So if you could just make it a little more expansive on that.
Sure. So two parts to this. One really is what has increasingly become table stakes in our business, right? Can I trust the brand? I'm getting into a contract which is going to be 10, 20, 30 years even. We want to deal with a category of brands, or in this club, shall I say, or this top tier group, where I can trust the brand and I'm comfortable getting into a contract. So that's table stakes. Very glad and very proud to belong to that club as being part of this brand. Specifically, as we look at any of our offerings, and let me take home loans and loan against property because we've already launched those. There's three things that we work on building around, right? And I'll try and give you an example in each. One is that when we were launching, one of the logical questions is, this is a commodity business. It's just the cheap price, banner headline, cheapest price always wins. Far from, actually, now having seen the last 15 months, 16 months. So the first thing that we found favor with customers is flexibility. It's not just about what is the banner headline rate, it is really about how are you making it possible for me to own this asset. So let me give you an example. Pirojsha touched upon an innovation that we have called Design Your EMI. Most people that buy homes today buy them under construction, which means you're always balancing paying an existing EMI or rent and putting money down for another payment. So that innovation, for instance, allows a customer to take it up, take the payments down, and balance the whole cost of ownership with cash flows, because I'm going to move in there sometime from now. The second is affordability. Again, affordability too often is looked at only as a single point answer. There's a lot more nuance to it. Of course, this is a fabulous time to be a borrower with the kind of rates that we have, and ourselves included, must offer really competitive rates because it's been a huge mover of the needle. But in addition to that, again, it goes back in saying, how are you making it easier for me to start small, go higher? Sometimes the affordability comes, matching an asset sale elsewhere. I have to, sell another house, pay this off, then I can afford to get started. And the third, last but not the least, really is personalization. And I keep coming back to when you've got risk and you've built your platform, when the technology allows you to do it, you can personalize, and that personalization is scalable. So let me give you an example. A lot of the innovation spent in saying we'll just take the whole process digital. Very often personalization is meant to mean that we will price different people differently. But there's so much more we can do. For instance, we make far more clusters of similar customers that we bunch together and then try and make sure we can serve up what makes most sense to that cluster. Take an example of personalization, right? The three of us may be very, very comfortable and might prefer a process done entirely digitally, and I don't want to sign a loan agreement and I don't want to go back to the 40 signatures, and I'm happy with doing 3 clicks. But you must have a platform that allows you to say, hang on a second, it's a very big decision. I don't buy a home every day. I'd actually prefer the hand signed, and I'm okay with the 40 signatures. That just makes me feel better. How do you make sure that you tailor-make, right? You're allowed this option, but we're equally comfortable in saying no problem. We'll print it for you and feel free to sign it. So I think time and again, and we've studied our customer feedback, very closely, and sort of NPS is sort of heart and front and center of everything we do. And these 3 things have stood out each time in saying if these 3 things combine well, it makes for a fabulous offering. And we are more than happy to put you in the same comparator basket as we put, the top 3 players who've been around for decades.
Okay, I don't think that companies spend enough time on talking about culture, environment, diversity, inclusion. Godrej Group being the notable exception. I've had some of the most wonderful conversations in those spheres. And I think that would be a nice way to segue into audience questions with you, Manish, taking this one. We've spoken about business, industry, channel partners. What's your plan in terms of employee engagement? Where are you at as far as generating employment, especially for women, is concerned? Like I said, the Godrej Group has always stood out for culture, for environment.
So, Rishi, again, you'd accuse me of putting a lot of things front and center, but this is, very much belongs there. We're super proud about the fact that, we had this opportunity to paint this canvas from scratch. Right? We had a blank canvas, and we're very, very proud about the fact that, so we have 350 people today. These folks come from more than 100 different organizations. More than half of our senior management, half of our leadership team, women. You see this table here, it's like the perfect instance of, this is what I'm saying, half of our leadership team, half of our board, half of our senior team are women. The industry average is 1 in 4 employees are women. We are at higher than 1 in 3. And in fact, it's the inverted industry average, right? There's many ways to make an average. Ours is to look at from a leadership perspective, from a representation perspective. So I think that was the segue really into us. We weren't very surprised when we were awarded being a great place to work. Personally, I'm not very surprised for us also, being awarded by the ET as being a great place or among the best place to work as women. Still early days. There's a lot of work we have to do in this space. I think we have both an opportunity and a duty. So for instance, one of the projects that we want to look at very seriously as we scale up our operations, especially our back-end operations, is to look at diversity with a much larger lens. People with disabilities is something where we're starting to focus very heavily on, and next year this time I hope to be able to tell you that here are the things that we are proud about working here. So yeah, we're very, very proud about where we've come so far, but we're still 350 strong, long way.
Super stuff. Okay, we're going to roll mics into the audience, but if you'd be kind enough to raise your hand, then I will point out to you. Yes, the lady in the first row, if you could just roll a mic for her, please. Yes, ma'am, please go ahead. If you could say which publication you're from,
yes, I will.
and also who you want to ask the question to, whether it's Pirosha or Manish.
Hi, I'm Uma Khera. I'm an influencer on Instagram, and really impressed by the whole event today and the way you're trying to explain to the media about what Godrej Capital is all about. The one thing that really interested me is design the loan and the thing. How are you going to design it? Are you going to look at their are they able to pay the installments in as much time, or are you going to look at their financial condition of the customer? Then are you going to design it, or you're going to design it your way, or are you going to ask them how you want to be designed? This is very interesting because no other company is actually doing it.
That's right. So happy to take that. So I think this will have a few parts, and there's a few of us that can actually flesh that out in a fair amount of detail. But all of the points that you said, the answer is yes to all of them. So does it need you to look at the capability of the customer to pay back, whether it's core and financials? Yes, because I think using credit wisely is both the customer's job and ours. What this has allowed us to do really is just build in flexibility that the system can do. So let's just take a couple of examples and saying, it's about saying that, do I really have to pay the exact same amount every month? Can we start a bit small and grow it?
Exactly.
Right? Can we service a higher interest component and not yet get the full impact? So what happens sometimes is, if you choose to pay nothing at all, it loads up and it's just the cost of the asset goes up. If you choose to pay it all, sometimes you just can't manage the cash flows. So in the way that we're thinking about this across our businesses really is in saying, sometimes you want to service interest only, sometimes you want to start small, go higher. In fact, that was our assumption, that's the only need. We've had a lot of customers coming back and saying the reverse. You know, it's been the pandemic, we haven't spent so much. Actually, I thought I wanted to start small and grow. I might want to do it the reverse. It's saying, can I just pay back a lump sum before, reduce my overall burden, and then continue? So all of the above. And I think it stems from, and we look at our developer partnerships, at the center of it is us saying, actually the customer, nobody really cares for the loan product for itself. What are you doing to make it possible for me to own this asset? In this case, I like this home, I want to live in this. Are you going to do something to make it a bit easier for me to own this home?
Exactly.
Of course, do they have to pay us back? Of course. But can you make it a bit easier than it's so far been? Can you give me a better option?
Thank you.
Anybody else? If you have a question, the lady there, if you could. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pallavi. I'm a banker and I'm a financial coach. This question is for Mr. Pirosha. How would you differentiate yourself from the existing banks and existing capitals that are available? And also, is your ecosystem will include distribution models, supply chain models, right from the grassroots, from the rural to the metro cities, or are you going to work in only, as said, the 11 cities that you are going to work upon? Or are you going to expand yourself to those places also?
Thanks, it's a great question. I think, there are certain disadvantages of, as Rishi put it, coming late to the party, but as Manish was saying, there are also some very considerable advantages. I think we can see what's happened in financial services, how various NBFCs and banks have fared, what has worked and what hasn't worked. We have an opportunity, for example, on the tech side to design things from scratch, to really try to be, I think every business claims to want to be this, but we had better be a digital first business given the time we're starting. And I think we are putting in considerable efforts into doing all of that. Our strategy has been to start with areas of operations we're most familiar with, both geographically as well as in terms of product. So understanding the real estate sector as well as we did. We started with housing finance. But as Manish was saying, already in the current year, the plan is to more than double the number of cities that we're in. Over time, certainly we see, as you were asking, this business going much deeper and across the breadth and width of this country. But we see it starting, and there's two ways to approach things. You can both from a product and from a geographic perspective say we want to do it all at once. But we think most long-term strong businesses are built in a slightly more deliberate manner and taking the right steps, first proving success in that and then building out additional products and geography. So that's how we'd like to go about it.
Anybody else?
Hello, Nilesh Wagela from Mumbai Samachar. This is a very simple question which I am a little bit confused, that's why I am asking you. That you are saying that you are launching Godrej Capital, right? You are also saying that it is holding company of this Godrej Housing Finance and Godrej Finance. Again you say that this is a new company, Godrej Capital, but it has already started its work and already spread in so many cities, and we are going to expand in more cities. So I just want to understand that whether it is a merger of this housing finance and finance company, or what is it actually? Technically, I want to understand this.
Should I take? Yeah. No. So far, we only had Godrej Housing Finance. It's a fair question, and in many ways, I think what you're seeing here really is the reorganizing of it. Godrej Capital will own both Godrej Housing and Godrej Finance. In the housing finance company, our focus is only, as the name suggests, loans for housing, whether prime housing or affordable housing, and all other forms of lending, come in the finance, in Godrej Finance. Just marrying the earlier question with this, it gives us the base. So as Godrej Capital is the parent company, let's say tomorrow there is another opportunity in the agri space, then it gives us another opportunity under the same banner of Godrej Capital. So Godrej Capital, did it have its operations so far? It's more accurate to say Godrej Housing Finance had its operations so far.
Okay, we've got a question from somebody who's joined us online. This is Chennai Press News. Can you talk about any individual special schemes for women, Manish?
It would be hard actually, Rishi. It's a fair question. And I don't think we've looked at it in saying that we've got all of these innovations and now we're going to add another one that are only for women. Almost all of these, anything that we've done is in saying it should be applicable to anybody, it should be gender neutral, it should be, none of it should creep up. So, no, I think we've tried to make sure that, everyday low pricing, for example, just stays that way. It should be for everyone and it shouldn't need a further discount, or, you mark it up and then you have a discount.
Fair enough. There's another one from Usha. Will you be looking at education loans? If yes, will it be structured in such a way that the interest is paid and the loan repaid once the student starts earning? That's a very relevant question.
Early days, Rishi, for now. It's hard at this point. I think we have our hands full with our near-term plans. Next year, next 12 to 24 months, probably not.
Do you have any more questions, please?
Can I?
Sure, please.
So one thing that interested me as a female
Just a moment. People in the back might not be able to hear you. If you could use the microphone. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. So one thing that really interested me about the company was that you have employed many women. I am so impressed. So women are as capable as men, right? And when you say you have employed more women, have you employed them because of their capability or because it was a policy of the company that you're going to give more importance to the women in the company? Just as a female influencer, because we have a lot of influencers who are, everybody will agree with me, who are females right now. We have the stronghold in the media. So I'm really happy you're going this way, and I wish you all the luck. But I really want to ask, did you employ them because they were intelligent, or did you employ them because they were women?
I think we were super fortunate that they just combined to being both of these, which is that I don't think we can ever compromise on getting the best person for the job. So I don't think we've ever found ourselves in a place in saying, here's the ratio we need to maintain. Absolutely not.
So I can say that women are more intelligent.
I'm happy to support that. I think we all are. I think the only piece we'd add is we have to have lots of enablers to make it easier for women or anyone who hasn't worked with us in the past, doesn't have the same familiarity, maybe even comes from another industry, in just how do they know that we're open to bringing them on board? How do they know that they're likely to succeed here? That's a lot of work.
That's really a great point. Yeah.
You'll see a lot of the team actually taking the lead on that.
Yes.
Okay. This is from Rizwan Sayed, who's joined us online. Thank you, Rizwan. He's from NRI News 24/7. The concept of loan design, how do you accommodate restructuring of a loan for customers with a genuine, non-fraudulent financial issue when repaid?
I think it's very hard for there to be a straight one-size-fits-all answer. Sometimes it's institutional, right? Like we saw the moratorium that was allowed for any customer who chose to ask.
So it's like a design your own EMI. That's what.
Yeah, in some cases it's product design, which is design your repayment plan. Sometimes it's difficulty, right? Which is that I signed up for something but we can't manage it. Sometimes you manage it institutionally, like a moratorium. In other cases, it's just working with the customer through that difficulty. What is important though, just like we touched upon earlier, it's a two-way street. As long as the customers are forthcoming about the need to wanting to redo it, it's something that can be worked through. But most care actually that us and the responsibility for us as financiers is to make sure that using credit wisely is understood both ways. It's in nobody's interest where somebody gets overloaded with debt that you either didn't need or couldn't service.
Any other questions?
I think there's a couple behind Rishi.
Yes. Rohit, the gentleman there in the back.
Hello. Hi, this is Shubroto from Business Standard. So you mentioned 4 lines of business: prime housing, LAP, affordable housing and unsecured lending. Are there any other lines of business that you'll be looking at, like consumer finance?
As long as we do a good job of these 4, over the next year or possibly even 2, unlikely.
So the first 3 will be with Godrej Housing, and unsecured lending will be with Godrej Finance, right?
Loan against property is also part of Godrej Finance.
Okay. Secondly, RBI has been killing the regulatory arbitrage that existed between banks and NBFCs. So do you think this is the right time to enter the non-banking finance space?
So look, one is that we entered 3 years ago, so in that sense the timing is not now. On the regulatory landscape, actually we welcome the direction in which it's going. Essentially it is, and there's many nuances where a lot of the difference in the regulatory arbitrage, like you called it, is going down. Scale-based regulation essentially isn't saying that if you run it like a long-term business, you have your house in order. Almost all of the regulation that we've seen in the last several quarters has been have been favorable. Essentially saying what, right? So we're just going to regulate. We want to see discipline in how you run your business, whether it's principal business criteria, in whichever way that we look at accounting and reporting. So, not really. I think it's welcome. I think what's been made very clear is only if you have a large long-term ambition is it worth your while.
Namrata Singh from the Times of India joins us online. Thank you, Namrata, for your question. Manish, what happens to Godrej Housing Finance? Can you please explain the holding structure once again for clarity? Thank you.
Nothing happens. Godrej Housing Finance and Godrej Finance are both entirely wholly owned by Godrej Capital.
Subhashri from Bloomberg. Thank you, Subhashri, for joining us. Your press release says another 35 billion rupees will need to be infused as equity into GCL by 2026. How will this be raised? That's part one. Part two, GCL will also give out mortgage loans like Godrej Housing. Won't that cannibalize each other?
So I think on the equity piece, what we've already committed and will have by the end of the month 1,500 crores of equity invested. That is all coming from Godrej Industries balance sheet. For the remaining 3,500 crore that we will require by 2026, we will of course seek Godrej Industries board approvals, etc. But we do expect to infuse most of that capital again from the group. I think we're very excited about this opportunity and the returns it can generate. So we are likely to provide all of that from the group itself.
Second one, which is actually Godrej Capital doesn't do the loan. It's either done from one of the two companies, either housing or finance.
Rishi, a question here.
Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Jai Desai. I am a chartered accountant and a social media influencer. My question is, Godrej has held NBFC license since 1998, as far as I know. But what is the biggest reason that it has never been active in the lending space until now, and it is now foraying into that space? What are the biggest reasons to that?
Yeah, I think, with the benefit of hindsight, perhaps we should have moved on this opportunity more quickly. I certainly think that it is a big one. But we of course, as a group, had a lot of different businesses that we were focusing on. Over the last few years, actually, we've been more focused as a group on streamlining our presence and making sure that the business spaces we're in, we have a leadership or very strong position. So I think that effort has resulted in very strong results in businesses like our consumer products business, our real estate business, our agri business. We now feel ready. We have the appetite to invest. We believe there's a clear logic and path to creating a strong position in this space, and that's why we are now investing in it. But certainly we see it as a big opportunity and one that we will go after with a lot of intent over the next few years.
Rishi, one from that corner.
Okay, I'm afraid that's going to be the last one. So,
could we take one if you don't?
Yes,
please.
Yes, please. The last one. Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, it's answered. Okay, good.
Piyush, you want to ask?
Sir, please go ahead.
Hi, Piyush from Money Control. Just wanted to clarify on the holding structure. The capital company is the non-operative holding company, or?
So Godrej Industries will have now Godrej Capital as its subsidiary, which will be the holding company for all of its financial services ventures. You're correct that the operating business for now will be held in Godrej Capital subsidiaries, which are Godrej Housing Finance and Godrej Finance, which respectively have a housing finance license and an NBFC license.
Okay, and the capital, the Godrej Capital, what is the license that it has right now from RBI? Is it a NOA, non-operative holding company license?
Yeah, it's neither an NBFC license or an HFC license. It's the holding company.
Okay. So basically no loans from that, but from the subsidiaries which are there.
That's right.
Sure.
All right, it's time for a photo opportunity. I request Pirosha as well as Manish to come here. I thought there was a really on-point discussion. Also, there's a bit of a surprise for all of you. Like they say in true Indian tradition, थोड़ा मीठा हो जाए, मुंह मीठा कीजिए आप लोग. I'm sure you'll enjoy what you have. This way, yeah. This way, yes.
Okay.
Members of the media, you will also have your one-on-one interactions with Pirosha and Manish. So fret not, you will be ushered into a separate area where you get to do this.
Oh, I really needed that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do stay with us for lunch and celebrate the launch of Godrej Capital. Sujit shall take over and will tell you where the one-on-ones with Pirosha as well as Manish shall happen. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you everyone.